Back to what happened over the past week. So I've been hearing a lot on social media. All cops are bastards, or ACAB, and I think I think it gets a lot of bad rep because people assume bastards is meaning like the cuss word definition of it. But I think what people are this is the way I interpret it. It's bastard as the other second definition, which is as illegitimate, like the king's son is a bastard.
Yeah, like bastard child.
Yeah, and I think all cops are, and I think people when people hear all cops are bastards, they think, oh no, there are good cops and bad cops. And I don't think that's not the purpose behind the statement. The role, I think I think it's attacking the role of a police officer in two ways. First is that the role itself is a position of authority, because like compared to like British police officers, all police officers in America have guns in their holsters. While in like Australia, no one has a gun on them. You have to call a special type of police officer to get a gun. So they're more militaristic, right? There's a qualified immunity, which means the law protects them. There's like police unions, which means the role itself as a police officer is a position of authority, which makes them kind of illegitimate or corrupt. But the second one is like even if a police officer is super nice, they are still required to support laws that are racist. They're supposed to stop strikes. They're supposed to do really bad things, and if they disagree or refuse to follow through, they get fired. So the overall term of I think when a lot of people hear all cops are bastards, they just assume that you're making an overgeneralization about the humans that are cops, not the role as a cop.
Yeah, there's like, and then people say like, oh, what about the officers who speak up? I mean, speaking up is great, but until they refuse to enforce a law that they think is unjust and then face the consequence, which is being fired, um, then they're still a cop. So all the quote unquote like good cops, if they don't speak up against a bad system, they're a bad cop. And then when they get fired, um, and they start doing good stuff, then they're not a cop anymore. So they don't even fall into their qualification of all cops are bastards.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's entirely like dependent on the definition of like a police officer in America, which hasn't changed for forever. So I think it's totally fair if call them all cops are bastards. It's just like there's so many people who base their experience only on like what they have heard from their friends and family, and so many of them are like, "Hey, my uncle's a police officer and he's a really nice guy." I mean, who fucking cares? Like you can be like super nice, and then when the president is like, "All right, boys, tear gas like that baby, you do it," then you're not very nice then, but every other moment you're nice. Like I
Exactly.
don't want to make like a Hitler comparison because those are fucked up, but Hitler was a vegetarian because he really loved animals and he cared a lot about his wife. Sounds like a family man, except for all the fucking millions of people that he killed. Like he was responsible for.
Oh my
I don't know.
god.
You can't just judge people based on like how nice they are to you. Like imagine being like the guy who was wrongfully arrested by your nice uncle cop. Like he probably fucking hates him just because of like his experience with the police officers is really shitty. Just because he's a cop, not because he was a guy at that moment. He was an officer. He was a different breed basically.
Exactly. I think that's what a lot of people ignore, and they take the statement on face value and not the actual.
Yeah. Same with like Black Lives Matter. People are like, oh, well, are you saying white lives don't matter? Like, no one fucking said that. But read into it however much you want to. I don't know.
I think it just reflects. I don't want to say how lazy they are, but I think it gives me an idea how lazy they are. Instead of doing the research, instead of educating themselves, they are. And I think I was talking to my debate coach about this, and she's half Asian, she's half black, and a bunch of other things. But she says some people are not educated, and you can't stop that, right? There's gonna be people who are just gonna be posting stuff as an uneducated individual. But if you have access to take 12 APs in high school, if you have access to do like to have a computer at home, I don't think you have an excuse to not educate yourself on this type of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think call out culture, like yeah, it hurts if you're getting called out, but I'm all for it because it addresses the people who are too lazy to educate themselves about important things that are going on culturally.
I think call out culture is great. I just don't agree with like a lot of cancel culture. But
I
like
don't
call
agree.
out culture is wonderful. Like, um, like people are like, "Hey, why are you coming after me?" I was like, "Well, like you've had more than a decade to figure out why you're wrong. And you just decided to push that off, so we're making you do it now. Like, why not?" like hold people accountable to, especially coronavirus. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what other are you like out all day? Because you shouldn't be. Like, we'll call you out for that. But if you're in all day, then you should be doing something productive. And if you're not, we'll call you out on it. I think
Exactly.
it makes total sense.
One thing that I was actually thinking about was one thing that came to mind was Blackout Tuesday, and I probably you probably heard about that too, even if you're on the West Coast. And it's the idea that people just post a black photo on their Instagram and hashtag Blackout Tuesday. And a lot of people didn't like it because, well, for two reasons. First, it means that information about protests, information about how to donate, that's getting hidden away because there's these black photos all over social media. But the second one was one that I, I think a lot more people are implicitly thinking is it's kind of lazy in my opinion because, and maybe this is the wrong way of thinking about it. I feel like if someone's posting a black photo on Instagram, they're putting the minimum amount of work to say, "Hey, I'm on the right side of what's going on."
Yeah, I have like subconscious dislike towards Blackout Tuesday because like in my mind like everybody's a virtue signaler until they show proof that they aren't one. So like the people who post it, but then at the same time are posting like a ton of information on their stories or something, or like showing receipts that they've donated, like I'm fine with that. But yeah, virtue signaling makes me mad. But the original intent behind Blackout Tuesday isn't that you post a black square. It's just that you don't post anything, or at least
Yeah,
anything that you would normally post, like a picture of yourself and your friends or something.
exactly. It's
But
meant
like, I
to.
guess people took the wrong idea from it. They just think it's about a black square, and then they think they're like contributing.
I think there's something that Eric Andre got. Like Eric Andre's a comedian, and he said
Yeah,
something on his story which was, "Don't attack people for their anti-racist messaging. For messages to get across,
Nishant.
you have to like not be
Ugh, fuck,
not
I cut
accuse
out.
people." And
Wait,
I
yeah, my Discord just like froze for a minute. Sorry.
nah, you're all good. I think
Alright.
that got me thinking, which was when you accuse people of saying you're being performative when you're posting this Blackout Tuesday photo, it seems like you're kind of excluding people from the movement. I think a part of human nature is that you want to be part of a community. And when you see people who are excluding other people because of the way they're supporting the Black Lives Movement is wrong, that irks me a bit. And I think this is maybe because of my own community, because at least in my high school, there was a girl who basically, she was Asian, and she basically, if you commented on her post, like if you commented on her post, which is like a video of a protester calling a police officer short, she would call you a short Asian boy because you were disagreeing with her. And I think that type of aggressive nature kind of makes people less likely to learn more about the movement, and also they're more likely to just stick to their beliefs and not change it.
Wait, so she's Asian, and to insult people, she would call you a short Asian boy?
Yeah,
What?
if you
That's
like, it's
fucked up.
I think maybe this is my viewpoint, but I feel like you should
Like,
still
that's
be.
just like destructive to being Asian. Does she stand up for Asian rights or not? Like, I feel like she definitely doesn't, dude, at that point. That's like if you're black and you insult like your black friends by like saying stereotypes, like,
She
or like
said th-
negative
she
stereotypes.
said
Like,
this
oh, I
one
bet you commit crime.
she said this one thing that kind of irked me, which was if you say something, I'm gonna criticize you. Unless you're a pretty girl, then I won't criticize you. Unless you're a lesbian pretty girl, then I will criticize you. And I think I think maybe this is just like she acts
That's
like she's
so
so
stupid, dude.
she's so for the Black Lives Matters movement, and at the same time she's being homophobic. And I think the dichotomy between one personality and the other kind of irked me when I saw it.
Kinda.
It definitely irked me.
Yeah, there's like the debate between like how hard a movement should gatekeep itself. Like, um, but there's no. It's not like you get everybody in Black Lives Matter into a room and you ask them like, okay, who do we let in and who do we not let in? Because that's just not how it works today.
Yeah,
Um, it's. I mean, like, I wouldn't want that kind of person to like support Black Lives Matter, but at the same time, like people who don't know her personally and know that like she's a bitch or something, like they're gonna think it's positive and it's gonna help them.
I
Oh
think
my God.
I think it shows a general issue behind a lot of like leftist movements, which is people. There's like progressive, there's liberals, and there's like a whole spectrum on the left. And I feel like a lot of people who are more left tend to exclude people who are more moderate, even if they share generally the same beliefs on certain things. So it makes people feel
Yeah,
excluded,
like
and
they'd rather gatekeep than actually win, like in like a practical standpoint, just by being more popular.
exactly, and
Yeah.
a part of movements is bringing people together. Part of the human condition is like you want to be part of a larger community, and just excluding people or calling them a short Asian boy because you think they're wrong is not going to educate them and not going to make them change their opinions. They're just more likely to stick to.
Yeah, like people just like so many extremists now just love being divisive just because like there's no virtue in being divisive, but they think there is. They're like, okay, well if you disagree with me, then I'm entirely against you. Or like if a conservative person asks them a question like, hey, I don't understand why you say Black Lives Matter. Can you please help me? And then they're just like, it's not my responsibility to educate you, and they just block them. Like now they're never gonna ask for help or to like make themselves less ignorant. They're just gonna fucking hate you forever. And they're gonna go
Exactly.
vote for Trump in November. Like this is your fault. Like you were being like a dickhead about it. But they don't care. They're like, oh yeah, well they can go vote for Trump however they want. That's not my problem. But then they
It is your
complain when Trump
problem.
wins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
think it's if
come on.
someone, I'll try my best to educate people and I'll try my best to be really nice about it because I think that's the kind of person I am. But I think if you're getting aggressive at people who are just like, yeah, maybe it's someone's job to be educated about certain things, but if your first response is just like act aggressive because you think you're right and they're wrong, then I don't think that's the right way of approaching it.
Yeah, like people forget that there's it's not hard to change people's minds now, but they think it's just impossible because like they themselves refuse to ever have it like a discussion. They just like engage in just echo chamber behavior like all day long.
Exactly. If
So
you
they're like, oh
surround
well, they're
yourself,
probably never gonna listen to me, so what's the point? But they probably will.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
what Eric Conner said. It's just ego and bullshit. Um, One last thing. I think it's almost 1 a.m. here. The podcast is getting pretty long. I want to end on one last thing. So, a really big point about MLK's protests was that they always had demands associated with them, which was let's try to achieve something. I really can't speak too much to that. But a problem with like the Black Lives Matter movement is that it's really decentralized. There isn't a center group creating demands. So we've seen change happen, like in LA. They defunded the police. They got rid of their curfew. I think I got an email from Berkeley today. They got rid of their curfew. I just San Diego got rid of their policies on neck holding or like putting your knee on someone's neck. But what change do you actually think is going to happen realistically? And what should we be expecting from politicians? Because Obama had this huge spiel about how we're going to have gun reform after the Sandy Hill shooting. Or Sandy, I forgot the exact school name. And
Sandy
nothing
Hook.
happened. Sandy Hook. And nothing ever happened. So what do you think we should expect from our politicians? And what do you think will happen?
Um, I don't think there's gonna be like any nationwide change. This is just gonna be something to look back on in like 5 years when they're like, hey, do you guys remember George Floyd and all those protests? Let's bring that back. And then that again becomes another 5 years later memory, like to look back to. Um, just because like yeah, like the movement doesn't really have goals. I've seen some stuff like on Reddit, which is just way too niche to be applied to the public. They just had um like you know like the Hong Kong protests, like they had like a
Yeah.
very clear like list of like 5 demands that they wanted from mainland China. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people online kind of copied that and made it American, and then that's been floating around like the 5 basic demands of um Black Lives Matter and like the anti-police movement. But that's not what I'm seeing like people talk about. They're just talking about like look, the protester was like shot by a rubber bullet and now he lost an eye. Like, what are you even protesting for now?
I think that's what
Against police brutality. Like, how fucking much does the police department need to like defund itself for you to settle down? Like, and
yeah.
just pick a goal that's more realistic and also affects more people, so you can legitimately make progress, so that this protest doesn't burn out in a week.
I think that's something I think LA took a really good approach to this, which was like these are the LA riots that happened in the 1990s. And it caused
Yeah,
like $1 billion of damages. And
the
I
Rodney
think
King killing.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
it's bad.
Eric Garcetti knew like how damaging that is. So like I think 100 million or 200 million to damages, he just conceded. And I think
Mhm.
um one thing that is probably going to be a reason why this is going to be we're going to forget about after like it's going to come back up in 5 years because it's just going to be just show like it'll be like police branches saying, "Oh, we're gonna have more accountability," and they're gonna put whatever laws are gonna put in place. But again, because of unions, because of no accountability, that's gonna happen, or no like third-party organizations keeping them in check.
Yeah, that's true. I think if there's gonna be any change, it has to come from the top. People protesting won't really do anything.
I think just like protesters need to organize themselves, get leadership, agree to be peaceful, and will also condemn violence, not just agree to be peaceful, and stay out for a long time. Like the American government is more receptive than the Chinese government, but the Hong Kong protesters are still out there, and it's been a year or more. It's been a long time, and they're still there. So I think like they just need to stick with it, because I think a lot of these protesters might just be one-time protesters, like they're scared away by tear gas, so they don't really go back, but their friends do. So it's kind of like the system's just like eating them and spitting them back out. But I think they should stay out there for a longer time, so that the media eventually can only cover these protests and not anything else, and then at that point they can have some sort of organization.